Follow you like a white on rice on Twitter. You said today America mourns DOJ's decision in the E. Jean Carroll case. A president can sexually assault a woman, then lie about it, defaming the victim, and DOJ just announced it will defend the president and assist him to avoid being held accountable for his conduct. This is disgraceful. Yeah, you know me. I'm always looking for the silver lining, the happy clappy, you always counsel patience. But as you just said to us, obviously off air, I'm not a legal analyst like you, but this is just wrong. They're just wrong legally. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, so I read the 26-page filing from the Department of Justice, and they have a legal basis to take the position they took, but they didn't have to take that position. There was no controlling precedent or case law that said, no, the DOJ must take this position. This was a discretionary decision by the Department of Justice, and it exercised its discretion in re-victimizing a victim. And I'll tell you, I cannot get behind that. This was the wrong decision that sets a really bad precedent, because now a president can victimize somebody in his personal life, get elected, lie about that person, mock that person from the Oval Office, defame that person, hurt that person's reputation, and get away with it. The Department of Justice will protect him in all of that. That's just dead wrong.
Yeah. Well, I know we were talking, you saw Rachel's, I started yesterday's show, loaded for bear on this. And obviously Rachel went further about the Department of Justice in general, because I know you've said previously you have a lot of faith in Merrick Garland. But it does feel like it's not just one front, right? It's not just E. Jean Carroll. I said immediately when this Arizona fraud started, I'm like, how is this legal? And so far they've just sent a letter saying what you're doing, is against federal. What is your take on what's going on? Because it's also about, reporters' phone records and all that. They're going to continue the Trump administration policy. What is your take in general, Glenn, on what's happening at DOJ?
My take is the Department of Justice at the moment is suffering from bipolar disorder, and that is not to make light of mental conditions at all. But on the one hand, they are bringing, pattern and practice investigations of the Minneapolis Police Department, the Louisville Police Department. They're bringing civil rights prosecutions against 4 police officers who were already being prosecuted by the state out in Minnesota. So they didn't have to do that to come in and clean up a state's inaction. The state was already doing the right thing. They did the right thing on top of it as a matter of principle. They got search warrants for Rudy Giuliani's stuff because there's evidence of crime in Rudy Giuliani's stuff. All of that is a wonderful track to be on. But then they're on this other track, this track where they're opposing Judge Jackson, saying, release a DOJ memo so you can all see that Bill Barr is a liar. They said, let's dismiss the case for the violent clearing of the protesters in Lafayette Park. There are real victims there, and DOJ weighed in against the interests of those victims in favor of the interest of the institutions. And now with this most horrific E. Jean Carroll position that they're taking, I feel like they're bipolar. They're on these 2 different tracks right now. They need to get on their meds, and they need to get on one track, and they need to head toward justice. It's not that dang hard.
Yeah. Well, and Glenn, you obviously, one of the big things is January 6th that you've been talking about. I don't know if you still feel this way, because you're on record as saying you think the DOJ is building to charges against Trump. You can feel it in your bones. Boy, I hope so. You said the date for insurrection was chosen by Donald Trump. They were incited to violence by Donald Trump. I think you all have all the building blocks you need for a charge of inciting insurrection against Donald Trump. And as to seditious conspiracy, they're still building to that. You say the leader said, I want you to come to D.C. It'll be wild. I want you to assemble. Now that you're here, I'm going to lift you up here. My mouthpieces, Don Jr., Mo Brooks, Giuliani, they're going to tell you things like go down there and have trial by combat, fight for your vote, because they're in that building stealing it. Now I, as insider-in-chief, am telling you to go down to the Capitol and stop what's going on in that building. So you said I've just described very compelling series of facts that warrant criminal charges of Donald Trump. And that's where I believe this Department of Justice is headed. They are building to charges against Donald Trump. I can feel it in my bones. You also said, I hope they don't prove me wrong. Has the events of the last couple of days changed your mind on this?
No. And here's why. So if you're going to be an institutionalist, and people will say the positions the Department of Justice has been taking recently in the E. Jean Carroll case, the Lafayette Park case, Lafayette Square case, those are to protect the prerogatives of the institution. Okay, if you're going to be an institutionalist, then you also need to protect the institution from a criminal president that launched an insurrection to overthrow the incoming government. Be an institutionalist, then go all out and be an institutionalist and do the right thing on the insurrection front. You can't have it both ways. Here's the problem, Steph. I'm afraid that some people's view of being an institutionalist means defending the president no matter what he does, and we are thereby defending the institution. If you have a criminal president, that's just a flat out wrong argument. I still have hope that they're going to get to the right place, especially because of what I see coming out of the U.S. Attorney's Office and the prosecutions of these insurrectionists and the criminal organizations like the Proud Boys.
Well, obviously, this is the headline today. The Senate report, Vanity Fair, you probably saw it. The Senate report on January 6th has a gaping Trump-size hole, which, of course, right, this had to be Republican approved, as I understand it. So, of course, right, there was no, this is what Vanity Fair writes. The new details the panel revealed speak to the necessity of further investigation, perhaps one like the 9/11 style commission Republicans just filibustered last month. But the report's own shortcomings highlight the difficulty that commission would face if a probe involves input for a Republican whose party enabled and in some cases actively instigated the attack. It is likely doomed to be watered down, which is what this report is, right? There's just nothing, no mention of Trump or anybody is at fault for this, right?
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the Vanity Fair's observations, but I'm not sure I agree with their conclusions. There are two things that still give me some comfort, even with that 128-page Senate report about the insurrection. The great big Trump hole in it is understandable because I'm confident the Department of Justice is investigating Trump's criminal responsibility for inciting the insurrection. So that's not something that, frankly, Congress should be taking up and reporting out publicly at this point. But here's where I find a little bit of hope in that 128-page report. The last 22 pages of it, Steph, were a verbatim account of Donald Trump's speech. That's foreshadowing, because that is them saying, here's the problem. The last 22 pages, it's what Donald Trump said. Now, Department of Justice, do your job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw this yesterday. Several congressional Republicans went to bat for the rioters once again, pressing Merrick Garland on whether they're being treated fairly. I mean, I feel like I'm in the upside down, don't you? Of course, all the usual suspects, Ron Johnson, Ted Cruz, Tommy Tuberville, Mike Lee, Rick Scott, asked Garland to provide information related to what they assert is unequal justice being meted out to those involved in the Capitol attack compared with other mass unrest, destruction, and loss of life. They're referring to the peaceful, hugely peaceful Black Lives Matter protests, protesting racial injustice. Yes, conflating the racial justice protests with the insurrectionist Capitol riot is difficult to take seriously, but it's quickly become a staple of Republican politics. I mean, so
we could add another name to that list that you just rattled off. It would be Vladimir Putin, R. Moscow, because that's the way we ought to start referring to him. Vladimir Putin, Republican, Moscow.
Yeah.
They are lockstep with what Vladimir Putin has been saying about the protests.
Yeah.
So, and of course, when you have members of Congress say this really wasn't an insurrection, excuse me, the insurrectionists who are being prosecuted have said, and this has been related in documents filed in court, we were doing an insurrection. That's what this was. So the perpetrators are calling it an insurrection, and they're saying we did it at Donald Trump's insistence, direction, command. So that's why you can't ignore the fact that Donald Trump is the inciter in chief. He's legally responsible for what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. And how our Department of Justice doesn't bring charges for that, if they don't, we're done.
Well, Glenn, I know I saw a lot on Twitter about what, why doesn't Merrick Garland appoint a special prosecutor, whether it's Sally Gates or Sally Yates, Glenn Kirschner would be my personal choice. But what kind of tracks? Because it shouldn't just be the Justice Department, right? I mean, it just obviously, I think we're all a little shaken about the Justice Department this morning. But how should January 6th be investigated? On what tracks, in your opinion?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, it would be great if there was still an independent counsel statute on the books, because that would take it out from under the DOJ entirely and make it truly independent. Unfortunately, that law lapsed. So we don't have an independent counsel statute. We have a special counsel statute, a la Robert Mueller, but we all know that remains under the control of the Department of Justice. Here's why I don't think we see a special prosecutor. Usually a special prosecutor is when the Department of Justice has to investigate its own party, right? Yeah. And right now, Merrick Garland's Department of Justice doesn't have to investigate Joe Biden, its own party. So that's why I don't think we're seeing a special prosecutor appointed. We can't appoint an independent counsel because we don't have a law that enables us to do it. I am with Eric Swalwell, though, who has been calling all along for a presidential crimes commission, a special unit in the Department of Justice, and they look into all presidential crimes and crimes by cabinet members, family members, members of Congress, and you get your arms around the whole thing and you see where the evidence leads you.
Yeah. Well, and you also said DOJ holds press conference on Colonial Pipeline case, remains silent on investigation into those who funded, organized, and incited the deadly insurrection. DOJ needs to update and reassure the American people because justice matters. I think that's the other thing is we feel just a lot in the dark about this stuff, right? Like, is justice coming? What are they doing? What's the update on this worst attack we've seen on our Capitol since the Civil War or ever?
And listen, as a former career prosecutor, I am all for keeping ongoing investigations under wraps, right? You don't want to tip anybody off. You don't want to talk to the public about what you're doing in a covert capacity when you're investigating crime. But with a Colonial Pipeline case, that's an investigation that is ongoing, believe me. And the Department of Justice made the determination that it is important for the public to know and be reassured that what we are doing regarding these cyber attacks are being handled professionally, and we're here protecting you, folks. Well, for gosh sakes, can you please give us updates on the insurrection investigation and on other matters that sort of fill us with anxiety and dread every day? Let us know that you're working toward justice. Reassure us that you're going to hold these criminal politicians accountable without disclosing any of the details of the investigation.